Welcome everyone. Agile documentation is the topic for the day. We will be talking about project management and the documentation as far as agile things are considered. Now, what has happened out here in this particular presentation, when you do documentation in an agile fashion, it is usually done in a software so that everybody has an access to it. So I would love to show you, and I will be showing you certain dashboards of the software which needs to document it, and wherein you need to feed in the data, the happenings, the bottlenecks, so that everybody comes to aware as in what are the difficult situations that you are facing around here, and that becomes a documentation process everywhere else. So if I am doing a project and I face certain bottlenecks, I mention it in my software, and the resources, probably somebody who is superior to me or somebody who is at my level at some part of the organization can help me out, will always chip in, and my bottlenecks gets solved around. And this is only possible if we have the agile documentation in the process. Please understand, the dashboard is what we will be discussing in and around as on when on basis. So talking about the agenda, what we'll talk about is the introduction part, the benefits of the projects and the project management offices as a case scenario. What is governance? Types of approved project, definitely yes. The various processes and the tools that comes around it, the methodology, and probably if we can show you some exercise examples with the reporting purpose. Let us proceed with the benefits of the project management offices or the project per se. First and foremost thing is it conforms with your set objectives. It is aligned with the strategy. It gives you a blueprint as to what are the paths that you need to follow around it so that you achieve the desired objective. Better governance and control, definitely yes. If things has been predicted, if things has been stated, it gives a ready reference for you to walk the path already stated. You don't need to scratch your heads with any botherations. Improve collaboration and teamwork, improve resource management, faster value delivery. We are talking about reducing risk, security, integration, change management, etc. We should be talking about consistent way to manage projects as and when on basis, standardized methodology, processes, tools, and technique, as the case might be, all around there. That is what we will be talking about. So, what is governance? Governance refers to the process of project request, prioritizations, and approval as a part of a broader portfolio. Now everything gets collated, everything understood. Now, did I say about an example wherein as a project manager, probably even as a team member, if I face certain bottlenecks, I need to document it in the software, and probably the person who could help me out can come forward and the bottleneck get removed, get eliminated. So this is what needs to be done as far as governance is concerned. It is all about prioritization, it is all about process, it is all about being an approval, so that everybody knows and everybody is aware in what page everyone is all about it, at what stage of the project management that we have been getting executed. The starting point is an intake form of projects. OIT, or leadership or organizational leadership, is currently reviewing the intake process of opportunities. Let us understand the value of project intakes. Now, look at it. If we say so, we have something called ideations, we have something called assessment, and the decision making capabilities that comes around here. So, agree with the customers on the project delivery dates, delivery times, the priorities. Understand the dependencies and the risk associated with it. Examine the potential resources, impact of the projects that are requested, track projects that are requested over a period of time, guide the customers to the next step in the process as the case might be. Did I say there are three steps: ideation, assessment, and decisions? Now, in the ideation processes, we are talking about subcommittees of various formation, the functional committees that comes around it in terms of department, in terms of strategies. I am sure there would be certain regulatory compliances that needs to be adhered to, and the various ideas that comes around here. This is what we are talking around. We are looking into the assessment steps as the process comes around it. What comes there will eventually affect each one of us. The university university or operational priorities, the competitive advantages, the organization readiness, and the synergy with ERP. ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning Network. Then comes the decision process altogether. Decision is approval from the assessment, approved from implementation, and deference as the case might be. What we are looking forward to. This gives me a lot of progress reporting as the case appear. Now, what are the types? Various types of approved projects. There are a number of them. A project is a temporary endeavor. Remember, it's always a temporary. There is a fixed start time and a fixed finish time. Any elongation beyond those things will always make losses for you as an organization is concerned. So, for the unique products, for the services, or for the result, all projects should go through assessment and requirement analysis as on when on basis. An assessment will tell me the duration may vary, require resources from more than other department, requires engagement for businesses, may require consultants as on when on basis. We are talking about implementation of funding rather than being confirmed as the case might scenario might tell it to you. We are talking a lot of things that comes around. Absolutely a lot of things that would be mentioned around here time and again. Now, this was an assessment. Now, let us come to the implementation project. Now, when we are implementing a project which includes the assessment, now assessment becomes a part of an implementation. Requires more than 3 months to get into effect. Obviously, yes, they say the Rome was not built in a day, and that is what needs to be ascertained. Requires resources from more than one of the departments. Requires engagement from the businesses. Will result in process change and organizational changes is, and definitely there is a perfect scope and funding around it, so you know the objectives, you know the qualities, you know the fund at your disposal, you know everything at the beginning during the implementation stage altogether. Now this is how the project management process and tools goes around it, and believe me or not, this goes from left to right directions that comes around here. This is how we are working around. We have the approval status which comes around everywhere, everything's phase by phase, and the approval that once has been taken care forward, we need to initiate, we need to define, we need to design, we need to develop, we need to deploy, and probably we need to eventually close the project. So we need to initiate the scopes as the case might be. If you look into it, this is what the scope is all about. It the approved budget, the milestone, the plan, and things like that. Similarly, for the definition of request for proposal or RFP, as the case might be, you're talking about security, we are talking about legal, procurement, and accessibility, as the case might be. Designing is also about the product design. We are also talking about the rollout communication, the changes, change management, and so on and so forth. Now, once we have designed it, can we develop it eventually with an update schedule and milestone? Now, this is a better version that comes around here. Once the better version has been tried and tested, we tend to deploy it in the market, eventually launch the product in the market for the end consumer consumption, as in deploying. We need to go for the test result, we need to help desk training, we need to have an approval, requisite approval, and so on and so forth before the project attains the culmination status altogether. Now, what are the methodologies? We have two methodologies, essentially the waterfall and the agile. Now, in the waterfall, it is all about traditional design. Wherein we build, we test, and when we deploy. So it is step by step process of going across with it. And eventually, once we deploy it, is we are releasing the final product for the end consumer or for the market to actually enjoy, perhaps make a critic about it, and so on and so forth. Often used for system development with heavy upfront plan or end product is well defined. Remember, waterfall projects are broader in concept and they have n numbers of teams which has been distributed. The work has been distributed to a lot of people and everybody's job profile, work profile, scope has been clearly defined, which is contrary to the agile project management, which is executed in a form of small tasks. So, and in this small task, every team members come from different backgrounds can contribute altogether. So, iterative development and release cycle is more important. So minimum value product or MVP is what we are looking into is more often than not, a software is utilized in the development process. The vocabulary is all about Scrum, Sprint or Scrum Master. It's a heavy customer inflow. If we look into this project uh, details out here, this is what is very reciprocative. It is all about being adaptive, all about being flexible, all about whatever requirement needs to be taken into consideration. Whereas, if you look into the waterfall project, this is very straightforward things, as in build, test, and deploy things. Always been going around it. So if you design it, you build it, you deploy it, and you test it, and then you eventually deploy it, and that is all about it. But in agile network, it will be all about the release cycle. We are talking about it. If we are talking about MVP or minimum viable product is what we are looking into it, the software development, and so on and so forth. So these are the two methodologies for project management: the waterfall and the agile, as the case might be. We are talking about the service team, right? What is this? The service team is considered. We will be talking anything and everything as on when on basis, right? What we are talking about here is the characteristics of the regular quarter release, the cadence, the backlog review, the annual service update, as the case might be. Yes, we are saying about the service of the team owners perspective. We are talking about the assigned team member that comes around here, and essentially the fulcrum of the project is your end customer. The customer remains the king. The focus never gets shifts from the customer's end at any given point of time. We are talking about regular releases, regular cadences, regular backlog review, and regular update, be it on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, biannually basis, or an annually basis. This is an example of a service team, as the case might be. Yes, I'll tell you the best practices, the lesson learned session, and opportunities to improve on your project. Definitely, yes. We're talking about following a major implementation. This activity works, gathers about every one of us. It is all about OITs, customers, vendors to reflect on each phase of the project, capturing feedback on effectiveness of the project process, engagement of the right stakeholder groups, challenges you faced, what work, what doesn't work in project execution, consideration for future organizational initiative or additional phases. Comment should be professional as to the conversation, as the case might be. This is what we need to work upon it. This is what we need to build step by step, and an incremental process as the case goes around it. Here comes the documentation. Now, this is a document which you can do it on a manual basis, right? What we are talking about here is a document history. Yes, we are talking about document history out here, as in what was the workaround, what was the version, who authored it, who approved it. Then there can be something called a review panel, wherein the document has been created, needs to be moderated by somebody else, right? Why so? Because I might require a thing, and I might orders n numbers of things, as a case my scenario. So once it has been moderated, it needs an approval from the third authority altogether. So that is what needs to be taken in cases, as well as document control, which is the fulcrum of this presentation of agile documentation. Let me bring it to a dashboard. Now you can have a project name that can be given across it. Let's say you are planning to create a bomb, for example, or a missile, or let's say you are planning to build up a new kind of consumer durables. It can be a trend line, it can be a fashion, it can be a essence, anything that comes around it. You can name the project, you have an executive summary that can be given out here. Then we have the strategic fit, the benefits that needs to be taken into consideration. This is what comes around it: the project boards, the delivery schedule, the project specific. Now, what I'm giving it to you, to the audiences out here, is a dashboard of a project management software. I am not naming the software, but more or less, believe me or not, the similar softwares are available in the market. I can name my favorite one, but probably doesn't make sense to entice it. We have an executive summary. You see this keyboards, the project information, the benefits, the scope, impact, the governance, the estimates, and we can go more and more. which I'll try to give it to you. We are talking about the cost, the context, the changes, the specification every now and then. Now is the depiction, the electronic depiction of the Gantt chart, as in what we are doing, when we are designing, when we are developing, the central test, the performance test, the business test, the viability test, the training, and probably launching or deploying into the market. Now, this is your project delivery and timeline. Believe me or not, everything can be given a deadline, every responsibilities can be assigned, every person can be fixed as per the requirement out there. In case the person is not delivering, you can have the agility to remove him or remove her and replace by the next best person that can deliver you the things. Probably we have the benefits. Now, what are the benefits out here? It tells, it is very transparent. It gives you an exact knowledge as what is happening and why is it happening and what is to be done with it. Impacts, the benefit realizations, everything can be accounted. Each project team members can see what is been and how it has been enacted all throughout it. Look at it. If we have given a data that comes around it, as some as the reducing of the cost, as in reducing on the resources, reducing on the timeline, or reduced time, anything that comes around it. We have the baseline data or the project data, projected data that comes around here, absolutely. Then we have the actual measurements that is they have been given. Is it right on time, right on dot, and what is realized as such? So this is what comes around here. We need to take into consideration the scope and the extent of the project scope. Absolutely well decided, well stated. It is there written in the documents, thereby nothing much to be discussed around here. Under the scope and extent of the impact, what comes around, if you can look into it, the channel bound, the messages, if there are anything that comes around it, if there are any bottlenecks that one needs to be pointed for or looked into. Now, what happens in a project management, we always have this huddle. We used to always have this huddle as to what is to be done and why it is to be done. But with the software, if we can see where there is a bottleneck, do I need a meeting? Probably no. I can see the bottleneck, and I can, if I have the resources in my hand, probably I can deploy it. I don't need to see the meeting, and probably I would love to initiate that time or in solving the issues. In a meeting, what happens? Even if four person meets and discusses for 1 hour about the proceedings of the project. Exactly, is it 1 hour wasted? No, it is 4 people or 4 man hours being wasted of the company. So that's a huge productivity issue that comes into play. As a result, now we'll talk about the governance, as in the boarding and the steering membership. What are the project board members, the project board approval, the steering committees, everybody's roles have been stated around here. Who can do it? What can be the provisions? Now, this is all about the governance before we come to the estimates and the cost. Yes, if you look into it, every time and things I have shifted from summary to project information to benefits, scopes, governance, and estimates and cost. I am just giving you the dashboards for you to understand what are the cost summary. There might be cost regarding development, cost regarding testing, the system test, the performance test, the number of tests that we come across with, the appliance support, the nitty-gritties, the prototypes that has been being played into it, the test market, the pilot service, everything can be incorporated out here. Now, that was the external cost. Let us come to the internal cost. Internal cost is also comes within the play. Now, did I say about the prototype? There will be a number of prototypes comes around before a viable prototype has been launched or probably has been tested in the market thereby. So, what are the costs about the data centers, about the test support, the release management? Now, these are application costs. There are so many costs that comes around here. We will be having to the third aspect of other cost in terms of your housekeeping, in terms of your janitorial services, whatever you look into it, of in terms of your security. There might be costs that are not directly related to the project, but without them the project, the viability of the operation is in a big question mark that comes around here. That is what needs to be done. So estimates and cost is business resources. Project requires the following business resources to support the delivery of the project as on when on basis. Business resource requirements, we need to work upon it. We have to put in much of an effort before we sign off for the approval. Here it comes the benefit owner, the projects, the client. How do we deliver it all together? This is what needs to be done. The project board chairpersons, the business sponsor, the ICT sponsor has to be taken into consideration. We come to the very last slide for the day. We are talking about the additional documents in terms of gate review, in terms of passes, in terms of information of the resources coming into the premises and the resources going out of the premises, the project roles and responsibility, the authority, the definitions of the ambient of their duties needs to be given. The scope document has to be mentioned around here. With this, I come to an end of this particular agile documentation as a presentation. I hope I've given you a clear picture of how documentation can be done in our software. And usually these are always incorporated one way or the other in every project management software, as the case might be. Thank you for watching this video.